Right now on Tech Radio, it's a Google versus ChatGPT showdown.
Google's ambitions in artificial intelligence.
Google launches Gemini.
AI is rolling out to workspace.
And it's completely changing the way we work.
Hi, I'm Artemis. I am a computer-generated AI voice, and you're listening to Tech Radio.
Every week online and on air with RT Radio, we bring you the very latest in tech from Ireland and around the world. You're welcome to episode 1019, looking back on the two biggest stories of the week, which are, of course, Google's AI Superfest and ChatGPT's stunning new AI upgrade. Plus, with our guest interview this week, we're chatting with Ivor Buckley from Dell Technologies about how all of these amazing AI developments could threaten our security in the future.
From TechCentral.ie, this is Tech Radio with Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson.
I'm Dusty. Joining me as always, our editor-in-chief, Niall Kitson. Listen, just before we get into ChatGPT and Google and I.O. and AI and all the letters, have you been to the portal in Dublin yet?
Do you know what? I haven't. And when I heard about it first, I thought, this is an amazing idea. This is really going to be something special for the city. And it's something that is already out in the world. I mean, there's already one of these between Vilnius in Lithuania and Lublin in Poland. Right. And it's the product of an artist/philanthropist by the name of Benedictus Gillis, Gylys. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. And, for anyone that doesn't know what it is, it's basically a large circle and there's a camera on the top and the camera is looking at you wherever you happen to be. And on the other side, if you will, there's a similar portal with a similar camera and it's looking at us. So it's just sort of a two-way link. And the idea is that, you get to look through and you see what's happening in the other city. And it's a great statement on sort of the universality of, experience and, you're far away, but you're very similar to ourselves. And it's just a wonderful way to bring things together. But of course, being Ireland, there's a bit of me going, how long is this thing going to last?
I think the answer will be not long because it only launched in the last week or two and already there's problems. Before I even say what the problems are, can I just say that there is security at the New York site, which you would almost expect because that's just the way they do things in New York, okay?
Yeah.
No security in Dublin because, sure, isn't it all laid back and what's the worst that could happen?
Be grand.
It'll be grand. So, whilst they are not being supervised, dubs have been on the camera, looking in New York, making inappropriate gestures.
To say the least.
They're flashing body parts. And the bit that I find sickest of all is that they are showing scenes of 9/11 on their smartphones to the thing, which is just...
That was really nasty trolling. Really nasty.
Very, very nasty trolling.
For which we should thank one woman for her efforts to redress the balance. And that is the OnlyFans model, I guess. That's what they call themselves. Let me just check her name here.
Come on, you're the OnlyFans expert here. You're the one with the subscriptions.
I'm the OnlyFans expert. Her name was Ava Louise, and apparently she's 25. And as revenge, as she says, she flashed her boobs at Dublin. I'm sure that told us that really put us in our place. Apparently, it was worth $8,000 to her, the stunt. So. Hey, fair enough. If that's what you were looking to get out of it, well, I suppose everybody goes home happy.
I think it's a really nice idea. I think something like this has been done before, not just in Lithuania and Poland. I was in Sitges in Spain, or was it Barcelona? It was one or the other, and there was some kind of a live video. It was only a temporary thing at the time. So, but yeah. I mean, it is a great idea, and it's a nice little landmark in Dublin to be able to pass by and give a little wave or whatever. But that kind of behaviour is just like, that's where you get that. Lads, what are you doing? You're letting us down.
Yeah, it'll settle down. We'll have basic measures. We'll be able to enjoy it.
Let's move on to the big stories of the week. And that's ChatGPT have announced their upgraded version of the AI, and Google I.O. then came out the following day. And what was amazing for me was I was kind of go, oh my God, That is amazing. Can Google outdo that? We'll find out as we go along. Let's start off with ChatGPT 4.0, and it's O for Omni, which is what? Omnipresent, Omnicenter.
Omnicenter, Omnishambles. No. I'm being unfair. It is actually a very impressive piece of AI. Effectively, it just means it's a multimodal interface now, so you'll be able to add, images, camera inputs, as well as text. So I think we were kind of able to do that before, really, weren't we? However, the big item with it isn't so much how the language model is being improved, but how you can interact with it and how more convincing it is. Because I'm not a huge fan of dipping into the uncanny valley. I mean, at least we all know that Siri and Google Assistant have a voice because there's nothing else behind it. It's just an interface. ChatGPT 4.0 seems to be taking things a little further, making things a little bit more convincing, and you can even change the kind of voice you're using. So there's one of the demonstrations given was, read me a piece of text, followed by, can you read that more like a robot? And it can do it. It can do these things. So I was pretty impressed by the human computer interface element of things. Also, there's a nice desktop app coming for Apple as well, for macOS. There's one or two things that tie in to my opinion of Google's entry at I/O, which was announced the day after. What's your impression of it?
Well, before we get on to Google I/O, I think the whole thing between ChatGPT and 4.0 is that they want to make it a more natural human-computer interaction. All right. Yeah. And also to speed up that interaction, because we're used to with smart speakers at the moment with Siri and Alexa and whatever else it happens to be. You ask a question and there's a kind of a delay before you get a response. So they're trying to really speed that up, and they're trying to make it more human. And here's a great example, because they asked the ChatGPT AI, how are you feeling today? And it responded with,
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for asking. How about you?
That sounds a little bit better, doesn't it?
That sounds very American.
It is very American. The other thing that they did was they demonstrated the fact that the ChatGPT AI can now see things through your camera. And what they did was they held up a little sign that says, I love ChatGPT, and said, what are you looking at right now? And it responded with, almost instantly,
I see. I love ChatGPT. That's so sweet of you.
You're going to want to kill her after, I'd say, an hour with that kind of an attitude. But it's a way more natural interaction. And I thought that was very, very good. Really, really. It's reminding me more and more of the movie Her, which we would have seen years ago. Remember with Joaquin Phoenix falling in love with his AI?
Yep. Who ditches him to do far greater things. But anyway.
Well, that's for our interview later on. So I was impressed with all of that. Do you know what I was most impressed with was they were talking about the desktop app, because with the desktop app, the AI will also be able to see what you were doing on the screen. So if you are having a problem with something, you can say, hey, whatever. I don't know. Does it have a name?
No.
I don't think it does. No. All right. Hey, you, come here. Have a look at my screen and tell me what's the problem with this graph or whatever. And it'll come up and it'll come back with it, and you can have a conversation with it and stuff like that. So that kind of speed was very good. And the other thing that impressed me was the live audio translation, which we actually have to a certain extent at the moment with Google Translate, that you can have a conversation, but it's text that comes up on your phone for when you're away on holidays. They showed a version at this ChatGPT demonstration, which I thought was brilliant. And what I'm going to play you just one final little clip from this, right? This demonstrates not just the translation, right? This demonstrates how natural the guy is able to speak to the AI, how fast the AI responds, how fast the AI understands what it is, and then how fast the AI does the actual translation and does it in a human-like way. This is amazing. Take a listen.
Hey, ChatGPT, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for asking. How about you? How's your day going?
I'm doing great. So I would like you to function as a translator. I have a friend here who only speaks Italian, and I only speak English. And every time you hear English, I want you to translate it to Italian. And if you hear Italian, I want you to translate it back to English. Is that good?
Perfetto.
Mark, io mi chiedo se le balene potessero parlare, cosa ci direbbero?
Mike, she wonders if whales could talk, what would they tell us?
They might ask, how do we solve linear equations?
Potrebbero chiederci come risolviamo le equazioni lineari.
Sicuramente sì.
Certainly, yes.
Great. It looks like it works.
Cue applause. What I thought about that was it was just such a normal way. It's like if you actually were in Rome or something on holidays and you met somebody, you said, do you speak English? Can you translate between us? Because I only speak English, they only speak. And do you know what I mean? It was a very human interaction as well as a translation. That's what impressed me.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at things like Duolingo or Google Translate, that sort of thing, you'll get the, how do I describe it? You get the words, but not the sense, right? Whereas this seems to be communicating more of the sense, that it does sound that bit more natural. So even though the functionality itself isn't groundbreaking, potentially more accurate, we don't know about that yet, but it certainly sounds more human. And just before we move on to Google I/O, can I please give a shout out to the nature of the ChatGPT 4.0 announcement? Because, again, this ties into my appraisal of I/O. If you can picture like the apartment from Friends, and that's roughly what the set looked like. And you had the chief technology officer for OpenAI, Mira Murati, was sort of holding court and explaining things. And there was an invited crowd of what? It sounded like there was about 20 or 30 people there. Yeah? Would you agree with that? It was a small audience. Enthusiastic, but small.
Yeah.
Right. Now, compare and contrast with Google I/O, which of course is the big software developer conference that Google does every year anyway. Very difficult to get a ticket to, very sought after. Now, first of all, let me talk about the value that we got from this, right? Big arena, big outdoor arena, invited audience of a couple hundred easily. And I'm audience of 100. I'll get to the invited part in a bit. Tremendous value. It's a 2-hour keynote and appropriate clapping and hooping and all that stuff for the guts of 2 hours. I mean, I'm riveted by all this enthusiasm. I think it is fantastic. Now, here's where we get to the conspiracy theories. At one point, the camera actually pans to show an audience reaction. And by accident, I paused because I was taking notes at that stage. And I looked and I thought there's something just a little bit weird about this image, because you could see everybody's faces. Like, very few people seem to be obstructed or, not paying attention or head in phone kind of thing. One or two examples, but not a lot. And then sort of I scanned it, and every age, every color, every gender were represented in equal measures, and no one type of person sat beside someone of the same ilk. It was amazing. I was like, if you had staged this, wink, you could not have done any better. If you were looking to score woke points, you swept the board. You got them all today. I thought this was hilarious. I mean, knowing the problems that we have in Ireland, we have with getting different types of people into STEM courses. and getting people, to move into software development are serious issues. The talent just isn't coming through quickly enough. And granted, it's Google, it's the States. But look, just transplanting my own experience as an Irishman to see the audience over there, I was just like, there is no way. No. Whatever way you guys assign tickets.
Just something I think that a subtle little thing that somebody went to an awful lot of trouble. And I didn't notice it, but fair play to you, Niall, for noticing. And fair play to Google for taking the trouble to do it. So let's get into Google.
This is Tech Radio.
Okay, so Sundar's mission is AI first. Do you think he's delivering after what you've seen of I/O this year?
In fairness to the man and in fairness to the organization, I think so. Reason being, on a sort of on a macro level, Google already has a suite of products that are dominant in each of the fields. So question is, how do we get AI to work in each individual product and service that we do? That's their challenge. I mean, OpenAI can go, oh, we just want a better chatbot. Okay. The level of expectation isn't there as it is with Google. And to be fair, I think they pulled an awful lot out of the bag here that was interesting. Some of which variations on what we know AI can do pretty well already. And some of which were examples of, okay, that's something I haven't seen before. Oh, okay, they're trying something over here. And some bits I found really interesting. And other bits I found did take me into that uncanny valley. And that idea that, okay, in the future, is it going to be a matter of using a bad proxy to recreate human skills and human creativity, just because you have access to the tools instead of the natural talent and inclination and experience to draw upon to make something really unique. So that's the problem that I have. But when you look at things like how Gemini is going to be used to improve things like productivity, I'm all on board with it. What did you think?
The big takeaway for me, and I get what you're saying about, kind of ChatGPT being one thing, because ChatGPT is kind of independent. The big takeaway for me was that Google is taking their AI and they're actually integrating it into products, which is something that ChatGPT can't. And I think it's good in a way. Let's kind of go through all the Google products that we know, email, meeting, photos, and workspace, and all that kind of stuff. Starting off, though, with search. And I thought it was really funny because they said they're integrating Gemini in with Google Search, and their catchphrase for this was, let Google do the Googling for you. That just made me smile. But I get exactly what they're saying. They're going to do it a bit like Copilot does with Microsoft, in that if you make that's not. With Copilot, you're actually making the search and it's giving you an answer followed by the websites it got the answers from. But the way Google are going to do it is you're going to do a Google search like you always do, and then the AI will have its own overview. And then you will get the list of sources, and then you will get the list of websites just from a regular search. Because it's going to do that, then you're able to make much more detailed requests of it, okay? And the chances of you getting a good answer are increased greatly. One of the examples was, your Google search could now be, find the best yoga near me and show details of their current offers. And then the AI will say, okay, great, there's 3 places close to you because they'll see where your location is, and they are blah, blah, blah. And this one is doing it for 10 and this one is doing it for 20 quid, and this one is doing it for 30 quid, or whatever happens to be. So I just thought that is going to make a huge difference to Googling, because if anybody's going to be threatened by AI, it is Google. Because what do Google do? They search. That's their thing. But as we know, it's getting worse and worse and worse. Do you know what I mean? You go into Google, you're looking for a particular search, and you're just getting a whole load of irrelevant answers. This AI could change everything for Google.
Okay. Well, here's one thing that I think they're doing with search, which is pretty interesting. If you ask it a big question, it will break down that big question into smaller questions. and give you answers based on those building blocks. So, for example, what should my diet be, for example, or create a meal plan for me to cover a week. It can take, Monday, okay, what happens on Monday, breakfast, lunch, dinner, okay, what do people have? And it will put together multiple suggestions towards this one whole. Because if you do a search for, how should I plan my meal? You're going to get lots of stuff back saying how one might do so, and different types of foods involved and that kind of thing. However, with new Google search, you will be able to say, okay, how do I do this? These are my constraints, yada, yada. You can add in bits of detail that will change the result that you get. So you can still get, that single, good inverted commas answer if you want. It just becomes a matter of how deep you go in terms of, the requirements. Like somebody might be a bit weird and say, okay, I don't eat greens. So you might say, okay, no peas or broccoli. Give me something else, and it will add these layers and layers and layers of search, which is pretty cool. So I like that. I like that a lot. One thing that impressed me, and I'm sure it will have done the same to you too, is how mail is going to be organized.
Okay, so what we're doing, we're moving on now to email and the other things way they're interacting AI. Okay, great. So email, yeah, go on, tell me.
Yeah, so this is something we both suffer from. You get away from your computer for a couple of days. You come back, you discover there is a massive conversation chain about something that really you should know about. You don't want to read 23 emails. What can Gemini do? It can summarize the main points of those mails. You don't have to read them.
Yeah.
That's useful. That's great. I'm a fan of it.
This is not particularly unusual. I think that has been done before. I think they've built on that. The bit that I got from the email that they have improved is that it's able to look through your email, and if you say, what receipts do I need to submit for the month of May or something like that, and it will look through your email, and all of the receipts that it sees in there, it will itemize them. It'll save them to a folder on your Google Drive. And then, and here's the bit that really impressed me, it will create a spreadsheet and summarize all of those receipts. All right. And then even if you want to go as far as it'll make a little graph and show you what all the receipts are for. You spend way too much on entertainment and not enough on actual computer supplies, whatever happens to be and then they would show all kinds of things like, blah, 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 and it'll help you draft a reply and yada, kind of these things. I know it sounds stupid, right? It sounds really stupid, but that's just we're used to that. Over the last 12 months or whatever that we've had AI in the world, it's just amazing how quickly you get used to it. But the email, I thought that was interesting. The other thing that I really liked was the Google Meet. Do you use Google Meet or?
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit.
I prefer it way more to Zoom these days. Zoom is always a problem, whenever about logging in or not closing down, or I need a password, I have to confirm with a code, or blah, blah, blah. Google just works. You click a link, boom, and you're done. But one of the things that they are going to bring in with the AI in Google Meet is that it will transcribe and summarize your Google meetings.
Yeah, it's the summarization bit that's the real value.
Listen, I've done this with another service and it is amazing. All right. You have an hour-long conversation between a number of different people, and then the transcript is there. Nobody wants to read the transcript. All right. But what an AI can do is it can go, okay, well, there were 4 people in the meeting. This is generally what was discussed, and here's the action points. Boom, boom, boom. And then it will give you, these are the things that were talked about at the meeting, and it'll give you bullet points on that. And you can click on any of the bullet points and it will bring you to that exact part of the transcription. And if you really want to listen to it, you can press play and you can listen to the actual conversation. So to be able to drill down into the information from a long meeting like that is amazing.
Do you know what that's screaming to me? If you are unsure or don't like the level of productivity of a particular group, and you always think, do you know what? I really don't want to go to meetings with these guys. And the one meeting that you miss is the one where something gets decided. You don't have to go to those awful committee meetings anymore. You just get the summary, which will have like 2 items, and then the following talked about baking, the following talked about their kids, the following talked about blah, blah. You don't need to worry about that nonsense. All you need to do is pick out the one action item and then, correspond with people about that. Job done.
There's a whole load of other dangers to do with that. But anyway, that's for another time. Moving on to other Google applications where they are going to up their use of AI, and that's with photos. So, you kind of you could put in kind of search for credit cards, and any photo that had a credit card, it would show you. Now they've increased that to be more specific. So if you lose your license plate number for the car or whatever, it will go through your photos and it will recognize your car. And it will be able to just, instead of showing you half a dozen photos, it will just give you whatever the reg plate of your car is. It can do other things, like the other example they had, I'm trying to think of it, best parks that I visited. And what it'll do is it'll go through, it'll look for pictures of parks, and then it'll look at the GPS information, and then it'll see how many pictures you have, and blah, 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 blah. And it'll give you some information about that. So you can ask way more focused questions about photos. See what I did there? Focus, photos, doesn't matter. Anything else on the photos thing grab you?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, in the way that we have organization by time, or sometimes you can now get organization by person, but even better, organization by something that person is doing. So the example they gave on the day was, how is someone getting on with swimming? And it will go into your images and it will chuck out the person, and you will get a presentation of, in chronological order of that person swimming. So the idea being that you go from, a point of knowing nothing or knowing very little and being supported and all that kind of thing, to them swimming in the sea on their own. That's kind of, it's nifty. Would I end up using it? Maybe not.
Don't know. It's interesting. Just the level of what it's watching about what you're doing. It's also listening. One of the other things they said was that it has a scam warning built into it. So it will listen to your phone calls and tell you if this phone call is likely a scam, or can give you other information, or goodness knows what about the particular phone call. But the example that they gave was a phone call, and the guy on the other end is going, well, we're just going to get into your bank settings now and transfer $50,000, which gave everybody a bit of a giggle. And then, of course, Google pops up and goes, this could be a scam. Beware. A bank would never ask you to do these kind of things, blah, 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 blah. That was, a bit scary. And then the other thing was Workspace. I don't know if you're a user of Workspace. I am. And one of the suggestions, what they did with Google's Workspace, which is kind of their own Office package and stuff like that, so you can use Word, word processor and spreadsheets and yada and all that kind of stuff, is you can actually make an account for the AI within your Workspace and use that AI as an assistant. Or almost like, as I say, an intern or something like that, where you're saying to the AI, okay, your role on the team is to look at all of the conversations that go through, the transcripts of the meetings, the dates of meetings, look at the spreadsheets, and then you are to organize jobs for people to do next week or tomorrow, or whatever it happens to be. You're just using the AI as like an extra person on your team, and they monitor everything that's going on in the Workspace and then makes decisions based on that. I find that equally useful and scary.
I find that you've basically programmed someone to be that person on the team. Yeah, you know the way a good team operates. There's one person who's good at one thing, one person who's good at another thing, and they might be pernickety about that one thing that they're good at, but you respect them. For their expertise and hopefully their communication skills, which only get better the more you participate in a team. With this, all you do is you offload, the bits that people aren't so good about or don't want to discuss or debate or anything like that to a virtual voice. And you take away the possibility of learning through experience or through getting things wrong by having someone that is right all the time.
But the AI will also get things wrong, but you can teach it. Don't forget that. and you can adapt it. And so here's another thing that came up. Okay, is they were talking about AI, and basically they're making it bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay, tokens is kind of the currency, if you like, with AI, and I think one token is the equivalent of like 4 letters or something. I can't remember what it is. Anyways. One of the big points that they were making was that Gemini Pro, the top end of their AI, will be able to accept 1 million tokens. Okay, so we're all used to putting stuff into ChatGPT, and occasionally it'll go, there's way too much text in that, make it shorter and ask your question again. With the new Gemini Pro, you will be able to put in 1 million tokens, which is the equivalent of perhaps an entire book or an hour's worth of video or blah, 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 whatever PDFs. Another thing, and I've seen people using AIs for this, and it's brilliant, right? And you'd be able to do it with Gemini Pro, is whatever your professional area or whatever your area of interest in, you should be able to upload PDF books, videos, podcasts, documents. So essentially you're creating your own repository of knowledge. And then you point the AI at that and say, I want you to be an expert on everything in that folder. And then you can ask questions of it. Do you know where I use that?
What? Right.
For audio and video PDF instruction manuals.
Do you know the scary thing from that? Somebody might actually use our podcast as a source.
It'll be for training an AI and how not to do things. That's for sure.
Can we talk about some of the other generative AI features? Because there's a couple in there.
Yeah, no, this is all kind of music and video and images and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Shoot.
So they have a video creator called Veo. We saw, it was one of the stock image companies, wasn't it? Did some stock video that was AI generated and was very, very convincing altogether. So Google have their own version called Veo. Again, put in a bunch of prompts, it'll throw you something out. It'll go up to 1080p, which I mean that's pretty impressive. Nice HD video. I don't remember offhand how long they can be, but the fact that they can do it at all is pretty good. They have Imagine, which is their image generator, which will now take prompts from images, music, and video, right? So you can say, give me an example or give me this, and it will do it in a very, very high resolution with very few artifacts. So the examples they were giving was sort of a wolf with an awful lot of very fine fur. And another one was a sunset where the sun was basically in the background and occupying an awful lot of the frame. Again, very little in the way of artifacts there. So able to produce pretty good images. I mean, they still have that sort of slightly waxy quality that I find most AI generated images do. Also up there is a music AI sandbox. That's something new. I mean, when I was playing with GarageBand in 2001, 2002, the loops were actually pretty good. So I imagine this is a selection of loops that you will be able to put in. I want this to be a little bit more, I want this to be a little bit less, etc., etc. I mean, for me, an awful lot of the fun of making music is, again, trial and error, learning how to use an actual instrument and finding sort of the fine details that become creative points in and of themselves. So if you want to, make some kind of music, that's fine. If you want to make your own kind of music, well, I don't think there's any substitute for, the real thing, as you might call it. Well, I don't know. What's your take on it? You use stock images and stock music. Is this, is this a great thing for you?
It's like anything else, kind of, if you are somebody who is not doing it professionally, this is brilliant. If you're somebody who's doing it professionally, I think you will continue, because doing something professionally is a step above again. Sure, you can have an AI create music, but if you've got somebody who is a musician create music, they will put out a much better result. Same with a videographer or somebody who's doing a video edit, or same with a photographer, coloring, all that kind of stuff. A human, I think, will always make the better thing, but a human needs 10,000 hours of working at whatever it happens to be in order to be a master at it. And there are so many other things that go into that I don't think a computer can get just yet. But I think for what it is able to do is it's like, I'm not a designer, okay? But I need to design things and make things presentable. So I use Canva, okay? Canva's great. Okay, I can go in and blah, 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 blah. And look, that's 10 times better than I could ever do. But it's not as good as if I employed somebody who knew design inside out and was doing something specifically for me. That's the difference, I think, between what you were saying with music and video and photo and all that kind of stuff with AI. Would you agree?
Yeah.
All right, good. We finally agree on something. Amazing. little note for the diary. Blah, 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 blah. So that kind of wraps it up with Google I.O. and also with ChatGPT. It's been a big week. Both of them, I think, have gone not just one step up. I think they've gone 4 steps up. You know that phrase, 1 step forward and 2 steps backwards, or 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards, whatever it happens to be. I think they've gone up 4 steps, both of them.
So who do you think won the week then?
I was so impressed with ChatGPT. But then when Google came out and said that we have done as well as ChatGPT, and then we have integrated it with all of our products, I would say because they're able to do that, that Google won.
I heartily agree. It's almost like if you harken back to VHS v Betamax. Betamax was the superior format, but VHS had the content. I think that's where we are. ChatGPT is Betamax, basically. Yeah,
I think it was a real glimpse into the future and something that we can literally taste. And as I said, the movie Her, the voices on both of them really annoyed me. But let's not forget that we have AI voice clones at the moment are just doing amazing things. So I would imagine, and I'm not talking about sometime in the future, I'm talking about maybe this time next year, you would be able to clone your own voice as the AI voice. Or Snoop Dogg, if that's your thing, dude. The other thing that really got me, and I think both of them did it, was the teaching aspect of AI and the fact that they're making it a more natural interaction between human and computer. And both of them were giving examples of, okay, well, I'm a kid and I'm talking about, and this is what I have on my screen. Explain this to me. And then the AI is answering questions. And then the AI is asking you questions to make sure that you understand and you're responding. And they kind of go, yeah, you've got them almost right. But that whole thing, teaching kids, teaching anybody, I thought that whole aspect was absolutely amazing. Scary as hell, though.
You can't let these things work in the absence of your own core skills. If you want something to be a convenience, that's fine. Yeah. If you don't want to learn how things work in the first place, then I'm not a fan. It's like, the calculator came along. It wasn't that people stopped learning how to do maths. It's just have to do quicker. Problem is with AI, if people decide they don't need to learn maths in the first place because there's a machine that will do it, then you have a problem.
Do you know what I find really scary? You know how we've said for years that if the product is free, then you are the product? And everybody's talking about AI being trained, okay? So basically, we're all being offered this amazing AI and use of it for free, but essentially what we're doing is we are training it. And not only are we training it, but we're allowing the AIs then to see and listen and be part of our lives. Okay. So it's watching what we're doing. It's looking at what we're having on the screen. It's monitoring our messages, our texts, our phone calls, everything that we do, everything we hear, everything we see could be overwatched by an AI, which remembers everything. It's making me think that I really need to hide my camera on all of my devices, a necessity.
Yeah, time to invest in a plaster.
Yeah, exactly. It's really, really scary. But then on the other hand, right, here's the other thought that I had. And this is maybe a little bit, I should be having something to smoke to go with this, all right? But anyway, here it is, okay? Humanity is creating it for itself a hive. So do you know the way bees work together just naturally for whatever reason, or ants work together naturally for whatever reason, or in our parlance, the Borg are a collective consciousness, okay? If AI is monitoring everything that we do and do every day, and it's giving us the best of human experience and human knowledge, are we not turning ourselves as a race into a hive?
Yeah. I'm not going to argue that point. It's far too late in the day.
Well, then one other thing, all right, then just to say about this on a completely different tack. And here's my last point, right? And I know that a friend of mine listens to the podcast. He's going to absolutely love this, all right? All of this that we've been talking about today with AI and Google, it makes Siri look like something that came from an Egyptian pyramid. Ancient.
Poor Siri.
But that said, we do have the Worldwide Developers Conference with Apple coming next month. And we do know that they've got some really, really big things to announce. And we have an inkling and suspicions and rumors that it's all going to be centered around AI. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yes, Queen. Slay, I think is the terminology these days.
We shall wait and see. But anyway, listen, that's it. A lot of news this week. Niall, thanks for keeping us up to date.
From TechCentral.ie, this is the award-nominated Tech Radio from TechCentral.ie.
We've spent an awful lot of time today talking about AI, but as we develop the technology, we are also going to face more sophisticated threats to our security than we ever have before. We were only hinting about that a few minutes ago. What can be done about it? This week, Niall Kitson met with Dell Technologies Field Chief Technology Officer, Ivor Buckley, to discuss tomorrow's threats and solutions.
Used to a kind of a human-based cybersecurity landscape, if you will, and also a landscape that is not so much sort of a red-headed stepchild, but certainly something that is seen as kind of a barrier to innovation. So where security always seems to be the last thing to be considered when it comes to a project. In the age of AI, are we seeing a change in this perspective, or is it seen very much as let's actually get the fun stuff out of the way and see if it's secure later?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, Niall. Certainly the perception for security has definitely shifted over the last 25 years. I've been in the industry anyway. In the past, security was definitely seen as a perceived obstacle to innovation rather than an enabler of innovation. And I don't mean to say that was like the Wild West and we didn't, apply the necessary guardrails and security procedures and processes, but it was definitely viewed as a kind of a blocker towards innovation in organizations and slow down innovation. But that definitely has changed, and particularly changed over the last few years, I feel, with the evolution of cybercrime. Organizations now recognize that, a robust security posture is absolutely necessary and essential for business continuity and for data protection. When you consider what happens in a cyber attack and the impact that can have, not just on the organization, but on the impact on brand reputation and customer trust after cyber attacks, security is definitely no longer viewed as a blocker, but definitely as a strategic imperative. And it aligns with, I suppose, responsible and ethical practices too, and regulatory compliance, which I see is very important. And maybe as we're hurtling along in this whole AI innovation space, those have been left behind a little bit, but definitely over the last few years, modern IT is embracing security as an integral part of its operations rather than an impediment. Yeah, for sure.
And another element of IT incident response has been the awareness of wellness amongst security teams. To what extent do you see that as driving the need for better tools, whether they be requiring a human interface or using that AI guide?
When we look back, I suppose, to the HSE attack and what happened there, that brought us to our own doorstep. I suppose up to then it was like the Sonys and, the Varts, and it was happening somewhere else. That brought the cyber attack right to our door, and it raised an awful lot of awareness in this country. And I suppose by the public nature of it, we have learned a good bit from it. And one of those things that we learned was during that attack, there was, in advance of the actual cyber attack, there was 3 DDoS attacks done in advance. So the HSE resources and IT staff were trying to resolve all those. And at their time of, I suppose, most exhaustion, then they got hit with the real attack. So I suppose humans are, I suppose, the weakest link here when it comes to protection against cyber attacks. When we see how bad actors get into environments, it is normally through a human error, be it someone opening a phishing email or an attachment, or, credentials are not strong enough, passwords not strong enough, vulnerabilities, patching, we're not doing those activities. These are things that AI can help us with. They can help us with determining and analyzing logs at a faster pace than humans can. They can, if they identify a suspect IP address, suspect DNS name, then we can, quarantine that system a lot quicker using automation driven by AI. And, these are the things that AI can help us with in a positive way. And I don't see the human element, I don't see AI as replacing the human element. I see it as augmenting the human element to help us try and respond faster to the bad actors, because when an attack happens now, it laterally spreads across an organization so quick that if you don't respond quickly, you're late.
We're seeing a change in the kind of tactics that are being used as well. I think one of the big headline grabbers of the last few months has been this sort of a deep fake corporate meeting where somebody that would not be used to dealing with senior management was suckered into attending what was a fake management meeting, who naturally enough, in deference to his bosses, handed over an awful lot of sensitive information. I think part of the success of attacks like these have been, again, that deference to a management structure, but also a kind of lack of awareness of the sophistication of deep fakes. Because it actually didn't take that much in terms of scripting to get across or to make sure that the bad actors got what they wanted. Do you think this is going to be something that is going to have to be implemented at ground level, where you'll have to sit people down and go, look, yep, that's fine. You're doing really well at identifying a bad email. But you know what? You've got to look out for things like fake meetings or fake requests that might actually look like the real deal in ways that we haven't had to look at before.
Oh yeah, the attack landscape is changing a lot. So if we look back to a few years ago, I think we all kind of learned reasonably quickly how to identify a phishing email. The email address might be there might be a letter or a number out of place. The URLs within an email were pointing to a different location, and you spotted the red flags, and we got to know those red flags very quickly. The phishing emails you get now are so realistic that it's hard to determine what's real and what's not. So definitely applying, a zero trust mentality and the concept of assuming a breach mentality. I don't mean throwing down the drawbridges and letting the bad actors in, but assuming a breach mentality is a culture that you're assuming that you're under attack. And I think it's that kind of mindset change needs to happen in organizations to try and defend themselves against the new age of attack. Because as you say, that deepfake one, I think there was one in Hong Kong where the financial worker was tricked into paying like $25 million. They thought they were talking to their CFO in the UK, and there was an acquisition going on. This was all valid, what was going on, right? But what they didn't realize was they were stuck in a Teams meeting with, a deep fake of their CFO, and they got embezzled out of 25 million. So it is that realistic now. And, the deep fake is probably the most scary one, I suppose, of all, because, they're so realistic. We've all seen the ones with Tom Cruise and and all, and that kind of misinformation you get around elections and things like that. There's another one is around the CAPTCHA, the one where we have to put in the numbers and letters. AI systems recognize, if a chatbot is coming in, right? But it's the way it's being phrased now. It's touching on the sentimentality piece of it and the emotional intelligence of the AI and Gen AI, so that, those captures are being captured and included, we'll say, in a locket or a bracelet. And it's like, it's phrased in a way like, I've lost my relative recently. This was a very personal item to them. Could you tell me what this locket says? And it's the CAPTCHA is on the locket, and then the bad actor gets access to the CAPTCHA and get around that whole piece, right? So, the attacks are getting way more sophisticated now, from the phishing email, the deep fakes. We're seeing, AI systems, data poisoning is happening. We've seen it with the DPD, where, a consumer that wasn't happy with the service, I think it was a musician actually, he was able to, train the model and DPD had to, take down their AI, so the guardrails weren't in place. So yeah, it's getting very sophisticated. The attacks are getting very sophisticated now, and I think we will have to use Gen AI to help us, our AI and Gen AI to help us against that attack from bad actors. Yeah.
Let's look at that point of data poisoning, because as we know now, businesses run on data without which they can't get better insights into their customers. So what kind of issues are we seeing with data poisoning? Are we seeing, people's addresses and email addresses, etc., being removed? Or are we seeing things like, fake entries being injected into databases?
That's exactly what's happening. So, AI and Gen AI is a service at the end of the day, and it deals on quality data coming in and a trusted output coming out. So if we're not trusting the output of the data, that leads to, I suppose, a mistrust of what you're, of the technology as a whole, right? So what we're seeing with the data poisoning is that they're injecting the data sets with malicious content, and that is then, I suppose, leading to an output that's coming from the trained model that's not a trusted output, and can lead to the problems, as I say, that happened with DPD. And that wasn't even a bad actor. That was just a consumer that wasn't happy with the service they were getting, and quite easily managed to retrain an AI model to say that the company was a poor company. So like, if that can be done, with little, input from, that's just a general consumer that's having that, creating that, then what a bad actor can do will be a lot more impactful to a data set. And, we have to look, I suppose, at ways of protecting our data sets, and protecting, I suppose, supply chain as well is another huge area where bad actors are targeting not just the organization, but they're attacking maybe the third party or maybe the technology partners that, an organization would use. So injecting malicious content into software updates, like we saw with SolarWinds. There was a recent one with Ubuntu Linux as well that got caught before it got released. But the one with SolarWinds impacted 30,000 organizations, where, unknown to themselves, SolarWinds had been breached, and they sent out an update with malicious content that, or malware that got installed during the update of the software. So supply chain is a huge area for focus as well, to ensure that the vendors and the technology partners are providing a strong supply chain to their customers and not introducing problems into the environment as well.
Yeah, that element of trust, it really does start at the hardware level and go right the way through to the end user, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah, it does. It's Dell, we've got a zero trust mentality, so the hardware, we check our systems all the way through from, when they're built in the factories to when we're installing them, make sure there's no hardware changes, nothing is being inserted into the systems that we're installing. We've got hardware root trusts and firmware checks and, immutable tamper-proof silicon. We authenticate our firmware on boot up and, all these kind of things prevent against malicious modifications that could impact you or impact a customer's network post-installation. Also when we're doing updates, we've got digitally signed firmware so that we're ensuring that there's no manipulation of our updates. So these are things not just that the Dell are doing, but technology partners and vendors are doing in general. And these are important things for organizations and customers, that they can trust the hardware that they're getting in. But once it goes onto the network, then there's other ways we can help them around data resiliency, around business continuity, isolated air gap solutions to protect their data, make sure they're good copies if they do get attacked. And back to that assuming breach mentality, we have to assume that we're going to be breached. So how are we going to recover in the situation that we are attacked? But these are very important elements. It's not just from themselves, but the suppliers need to be robust in their supply chain to their customers as well.
Over the last few weeks, we have seen the formulation and the passing of the AI Act, a pretty groundbreaking piece of legislation that's going to be rolled out across the EU. As a vendor, you will be dealing with not just the standards in the EU, but what's happening across the world. And of course, one imagines for countries that don't have these kind of protections, you will see a different approach to innovation and the use of AI, which might not jive with what's being done in Europe. As a vendor, how does Dell see this kind of problem?
Well, first, I believe that regulatory compliance is the base table stakes you have, right? So we have to ensure in every solution that we design that we are adhering and advising our customers accordingly on regulation and compliance. So we would have strong views on how to make sure that a customer, when we're implementing a solution, that we can ensure that a customer is compliant. We'll say NIS2, DORA if it's financial services, TISAC if it's automotive, or whatever compliance needs to be and regulation needs to be applied to your sector. This includes the EU and AI Act, and that was a very welcome set of guardrails. I felt that was necessary. I mean, as I said earlier on, we're hurtling along a little bit on the innovation piece, but it seems that that's to the detriment and being left to policy that's been left behind in the background a little bit. I think we need to accelerate the policy and the guardrails to meet and catch up with the speed that the innovation and the AI and Gen AI hype, I suppose, is accelerating at. But whenever we implement solutions, these are front and center, and as I say, these are base table stakes for us to make sure that our customers are compliant with whatever regulation is coming down at them. DORA is going to be for the financial services industry is going to be early next year. So our customers are busy ensuring, and we're as vendors and technology partners to these organizations are helping ensure that our customers are meeting those regulations and compliance regulations that they have to meet. Yeah.
And that was Ivor Buckley, Dell Technologies Field Chief Technology Officer, chatting with Niall Kitson.
This is Tech Radio with Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson.
That's it for this week. Do check out some of the other stories that we have online that we couldn't just squeeze into today's long episode, including what not.
Yeah, we got the declining cost of cybersecurity, a major investment by government in 4 Science Foundation Ireland research centres, and why the future of learning is about building skills instead of degrees.
You'll find those and more online at techcentral.ie. We're back again next Friday with a special show on smartphones. So do join us for that online and on RT Radio 1 Extra. And please do remember to share our podcast with a friend. If they're into tech, just tell them to look up Tech Radio Ireland on Apple, Spotify, or now also on YouTube. Until next time, from myself, Dusty Rhodes, and from Niall Kitson, thanks for listening. Take care.
Remember, you can get the latest Irish tech news with hourly updates, daily newsletters, and more at our website, techcentral.ie. Share the knowledge and invite a friend to listen. Search Apple, Spotify, or YouTube for Tech Radio Ireland, or listen with RTE Radio 1 Extra. Tech Radio is produced by dustpod.io for techcentral.ie. From me, Artemis, live long and prosper.